They were America's team. They were dynasty builders. Together, the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers delivered some of the most thrilling football ever played. And yet, beneath the glory and championship banners, this rivalry was fueled by something darker: ego, heartbreak, and an unshakable need to prove superiority. For 2 decades, these teams didn't just compete, they destroyed each other's dreams. The question wasn't who would win, it was who would survive. The Dallas Cowboys arrived in the 1970s as America's glamorous franchise. For a decade, they had fought their battles in the hallowed but aging Cotton Bowl. But in 1971, they moved into their true gleaming palace, Texas Stadium. With its iconic hole in the roof and futuristic luxury, it was a stadium that finally matched the star on their helmets. They had the cheerleaders, the star on the helmet, the nickname that made them larger than life. They were winners, collecting playoff appearances and Super Bowl trophies with mechanical precision. But beneath the shine, something was ending. The dynasty was aging. Tom Landry's stoic face couldn't hide the truth. Dallas needed new blood, new stars, new fire. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, the 49ers were mediocrity incarnate. They'd spent years wandering the wilderness of the NFC, collecting losses and disappointing their loyal but frustrated fan base at aging Kezar Stadium. Then came 1979. Bill Walsh arrived, a cerebral offensive genius with a revolutionary vision called the West Coast offense. And with him came a kid from Notre Dame named Joe Montana. Montana wasn't physically imposing. He didn't have the cannon arms scouts drooled over, but he had something scouts couldn't measure: ice in his veins and magic in his fingertips. The Cowboys didn't notice. Why would they? San Francisco was beneath them, stuck in the basement while Dallas bathed in championship light. But Walsh was building something. Montana was learning. And somewhere in the shadows, the 49ers were sharpening their knives. But trouble was already brewing behind the scenes. The rivalry didn't exist yet, but it was coming. And when it arrived, it would reshape the entire NFL landscape. Because these two teams were about to collide in ways that would define a generation of football. Little did Dallas know, their reign was about to be challenged by the franchise they'd barely considered a threat. January 3rd, 1971, Kezar Stadium, San Francisco. The Cowboys traveled west to face the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and Dallas defeated them 17-10 in the final game ever played at the historic venue, advancing to their first Super Bowl. It was supposed to be San Francisco's moment, but Dallas took it, along with any hope the 49ers had carried into that afternoon. The message was clear. Dallas belonged on football's biggest stage. San Francisco belonged in the shadows. The teams met again in the 1971 NFC Championship on January 2nd, 1972. This time at Dallas's brand new Texas Stadium. The Cowboys won again, 14-3, cementing their dominance. San Francisco couldn't touch them, but a decade changes everything. By 1981, the 49ers had transformed. Joe Montana was no longer the unproven kid. He was a surgeon, dissecting defenses with short, precise passes that moved chains and broke spirits. Bill Walsh's West Coast offense was revolutionary. Timing routes, quick releases, running backs catching passes out of the backfield. It wasn't traditional, it wasn't glamorous, but it worked. San Francisco had moved into Candlestick Park, a cold, windswept stadium that would become the fortress for their dynasty. They finished 13-3 and earned a home playoff date with the New York Giants, which they won. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. Dallas arrived at Candlestick Park as favorites. They had experience. They had Danny White at quarterback, Tony Dorsett running the ball, and a defense that had carried them to countless victories. The Cowboys led 27-21 with under 5 minutes remaining. Victory was within reach. The 49ers faced 3rd and 3 from their own 11-yard line. One stop, and Dallas would ice the game. But Montana had other plans. He drove San Francisco down the field with surgical precision, completing pass after pass, moving the chains, bleeding the clock. The Cowboys' defense bent, but refused to break. Then came the moment that would define the rivalry forever. With 58 seconds remaining, facing 3rd and 3 from the Dallas 6-yard line, Montana rolled right under pressure. The pocket collapsed. Defenders closed in. He looked for an escape, found none, and threw the ball high toward the back of the end zone. So high, it looked like a prayer more than a pass. Dwight Clark leaped. His fingertips found the ball. He came down inbounds. Touchdown. The catch. Candlestick Park erupted. San Francisco 28, Dallas 27. The Cowboys got the ball back with 51 seconds, but Danny White's pass was tipped and intercepted. The game was over. Dallas walked off the field in shock. Montana and the 49ers were headed to the Super Bowl, where they defeated Cincinnati 26-21, capturing their first championship. But Dallas couldn't forget. That play, the catch, haunted them. It replayed in their nightmares. The image of Clark ascending, the ball arriving, the stadium exploding. It was supposed to be Dallas going to the Super Bowl. Instead, they watched San Francisco celebrate. The 49ers returned to the NFC Championship game in 1983, but this time, Washington edged them 24-21 in a heartbreaking finish marred by a controversial late penalty. Montana threw 3 interceptions. The magic vanished. But San Francisco rebuilt quickly. In 1984, they went 15-1 in the regular season, then steamrolled through the playoffs, crushing Chicago 23-0 in the NFC Championship before destroying Miami 38-16 in Super Bowl 19. Montana threw for 3 touchdowns and was named MVP. The 49ers weren't a fluke. They were a dynasty. But Dallas wasn't done. Not even close. The Cowboys retooled. They drafted well. They stayed competitive, and they waited for their chance at revenge. The rivalry simmered through the mid-1980s, both teams circling each other, waiting for the next explosive encounter, because this wasn't finished. The catch had started something neither franchise could walk away from. Meanwhile, in 1985, the 49ers won another regular season meeting, but it didn't matter. What both teams wanted was a playoff collision. They wanted the stakes raised. They wanted another NFC Championship game, another chance to prove who truly owned the conference. Montana won his 3rd Super Bowl after the 1988 season, leading San Francisco past Cincinnati again, this time with a game-winning drive in the final minutes. He threw a touchdown pass to John Taylor with 34 seconds left, securing a 2016 victory. Montana was now a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was in the conversation for greatest quarterback ever. And Dallas? They were watching from home again. But the Cowboys were about to change everything. Because while Montana celebrated, Dallas was falling apart. And that collapse would lead to a rebirth nobody saw coming. The late 1980s were brutal for Dallas. Tom Landry, the only head coach the Cowboys had ever known, watched his team crumble. They went 3-13 in 1988, humiliated weekly, their star tarnished. Then came 1989, and with it, a seismic shift. Jerry Jones, a brash, ambitious Arkansas oil man, bought the team and immediately fired Landry, ending an era. Jones hired Jimmy Johnson, his former college teammate at Arkansas, a fiery coach with a college championship pedigree but no NFL experience. The football world was outraged. Landry was a legend. Johnson was unproven. Jones was an outsider who didn't understand tradition. Dallas went 1-15 in Johnson's first season. They were the worst team in football. Rock bottom wasn't just reached, it was excavated. But Jones and Johnson had a plan. They drafted Troy Aikman, a strong-armed quarterback from UCLA, with the first overall pick in 1989. Then they traded running back Herschel Walker to Minnesota in what became the most lopsided trade in NFL history, acquiring a treasure trove of draft picks. With those picks, they selected Emmitt Smith, a bruising running back from Florida, in 1990. They drafted Darren Woodson, a hard-hitting safety. They found gems in later rounds. The Cowboys weren't just rebuilding, they were constructing a juggernaut. But trouble was already brewing behind the scenes. Meanwhile, San Francisco remained dominant. Joe Montana won his fourth Super Bowl after the 1989 season, dismantling Denver 55-10 in Super Bowl 24. Montana threw 5 touchdown passes. The 49ers were untouchable. But Montana's body was breaking down. Injuries piled up, his back ached, and behind him, waiting impatiently, was Steve Young, a former USFL star and BYU product with elite athleticism and a hunger to prove himself. On the other side of the rivalry, Dallas improved to 7-9 in 1990, then 11-5 in 1991. Aikman matured. Emmitt Smith rushed for over 1,500 yards. Michael Irvin, a flamboyant wide receiver with elite route running and supreme confidence, became Aikman's favorite target. The Cowboys were dangerous again. They upset Chicago in the playoffs before losing to Detroit. But the message was clear: Dallas was back. San Francisco, meanwhile, struggled with quarterback controversy. Montana's injuries opened the door for Young, who played brilliantly but couldn't escape Montana's shadow. The 49ers won games but lacked the magic that defined the Montana years. Young would later recall the pressure, saying he felt like he was playing for Joe's job, not his own. At the same time, then came 1992. Dallas exploded. They went 13-3, steamrolled through the playoffs, and demolished Buffalo 52-17 in Super Bowl 27. Aikman threw 4 touchdown passes. Smith rushed for 108 yards. Irvin caught 6 passes. The Cowboys were champions again. America's team had returned. But San Francisco seethed. They'd watched Dallas rise from the ashes while they stumbled through quarterback drama and playoff disappointments. The 49ers needed to reclaim their throne, and the only way to do that was to go through Dallas. The 1993 and 1994 seasons became a referendum on dominance. Dallas and San Francisco met in consecutive NFC Championship games. 2 juggernauts colliding with Super Bowl berths on the line. The stakes couldn't be higher. The intensity couldn't be greater. These were the 2 best teams in football, and everybody knew it. Steve Young was desperate to escape Joe Montana's shadow. He later admitted, "I wanted to win it all, to prove I belonged." Young threw for over 4,000 yards in 1993, but the 49ers lost to Dallas 38-21 in the regular season. Then came the playoffs. San Francisco dominated the New York Giants 44-3 in the divisional round. Dallas crushed Green Bay 27-17. The collision course was set. January 23, 1994. Texas Stadium, NFC Championship game. Dallas led 28-7 at halftime. Aikman was surgical. Smith was unstoppable. Irving was uncoverable. San Francisco fought back in the second half, but Dallas held firm, winning 38-21. The Cowboys advanced to their second consecutive Super Bowl, defeating Buffalo for the second straight year, 30-13. Emmitt Smith was named MVP after rushing for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns despite a separated shoulder. But Jimmy Johnson was gone. The relationship between Johnson and Jerry Jones had deteriorated beyond repair. Jones wanted credit for the success. Johnson wanted autonomy. Their egos couldn't coexist. In March 1994, Johnson resigned. Barry Switzer, another college coaching legend, but a personality polar opposite to Johnson's intensity, replaced him. Dallas went 12-4 in 1994 under Switzer, but the chemistry felt different. The discipline slipped, the focus wavered, but talent covered the cracks. They defeated Green Bay in the divisional round, setting up another showdown with San Francisco. January 15, 1995. Candlestick Park, NFC Championship game. This time, San Francisco dominated from the opening whistle. Young threw for 3 touchdowns. The 49ers defense suffocated Dallas, forcing 3 turnovers. San Francisco won 38-28, advancing to Super Bowl 29. They destroyed San Diego 49-26. Young threw 6 touchdown passes and was named MVP. He'd finally silenced the doubters. "Nobody can say I can't win the big one," Young said after the game. But Dallas wasn't finished. In 1995, they went 12-4 again, and Barry Switzer, despite constant criticism, guided them back to the playoffs. They defeated Philadelphia, then Green Bay, in a thrilling game that came down to the final seconds. They advanced to Super Bowl 30, where they faced Pittsburgh. Aikman threw for 209 yards. Larry Brown intercepted 2 passes. Dallas won 27-17, capturing their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. San Francisco, meanwhile, lost to Green Bay in the divisional round. The 49ers were still elite, but their window was closing. Young was aging. Jerry Rice, their legendary wide receiver, was still brilliant, but couldn't play forever. And Dallas? They were imploding. The Cowboys' dynasty collapsed quickly, but not before delivering one final moment of disrespect that perfectly captured how this once classy rivalry had turned venomous. During a 2000 regular season game at Texas Stadium, 49ers wide receiver Terrell Owens, a brash, supremely talented receiver who'd grown up idolizing the Cowboys, caught 2 touchdown passes. After each score, he ran to midfield and celebrated on the Dallas Star logo. The second time, Cowboys safety George Teague tackled him in retaliation. The rivalry, once defined by championship battles, had devolved into petty theatrics. The glory days were dead. Switzer resigned after the 1997 season. Aikman's body broke down. Irving's off-field issues became tabloid fodder. The discipline Johnson had instilled vanished. Dallas missed the playoffs in 1997, 1998, and 1999. The dynasty was dead. Elsewhere in the league, San Francisco stumbled too. Young suffered multiple concussions and retired in 2000. The 49ers spiraled, missing the playoffs repeatedly, rebuilding slowly, painfully. Both franchises that had dominated the 1990s were shadows of their former glory. The rivalry that had defined a decade faded into memory. The 2000s and 2010s were unkind to both franchises. Dallas cycled through coaches: Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Bill Parcells, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett. Then came Tony Romo, an undrafted free agent from Eastern Illinois who became a franchise quarterback despite constant criticism. Romo was talented, clutch in moments, but haunted by playoff failures. The Cowboys made the playoffs sporadically, but never advanced past the divisional round. The glory days felt impossibly distant. San Francisco suffered worse. They hired and fired coaches with alarming frequency. Alex Smith, their first overall pick in 2005, struggled for years under terrible coaching. The 49ers went 2-14 in 2004, 4-12 in 2005. They were irrelevant, forgotten, a punchline in a league they'd once dominated. But in 2011, Jim Harbaugh arrived. The 49ers hired the intense, fiery former quarterback, and he immediately transformed the franchise. They went 13-3, advanced to the NFC Championship game, and narrowly lost to the New York Giants in overtime. In 2012, they reached Super Bowl 47, but lost to Baltimore 34-31 in a heartbreaking finish. San Francisco was competitive again, but the magic remained elusive. Dallas, meanwhile, hired Jason Garrett, a former backup quarterback who preached discipline but couldn't deliver championships. They drafted Dak Prescott in the 4th round of the 2016 draft and Ezekiel Elliott in the 1st round. The Cowboys went 13-3 in Prescott's rookie season, but lost to Green Bay in the divisional round. The playoff futility continued. The rivalry was dormant now, or so it seemed. Dallas and San Francisco rarely played meaningful games against each other during this era. The playoff collisions that defined the 1990s were memories, replayed on highlight reels but never recreated. But the 2020s brought a flicker of hope. The 49ers hired Kyle Shanahan, son of former Denver coach Mike Shanahan, and built a physical, run-heavy team anchored by an elite defense. They reached Super Bowl 54 after the 2019 season, but lost to Kansas City 31-20, blowing a 10-point fourth-quarter lead. They returned to the NFC Championship game in 2021 and 2022, but couldn't break through. The ghosts of Montana and Young watched from the past, their legacy still unmatched. Dallas continued their playoff struggles. Mike McCarthy replaced Garrett as head coach, but the results remained frustratingly similar. Regular season success followed by playoff heartbreak. The Cowboys hadn't reached an NFC Championship game since 1995. The drought was maddening. But then, the rivalry exploded back to life. January 16, 2022. AT&T Stadium, Arlington. Wild card round. The 49ers traveled to Dallas for their first playoff meeting in 27 years. San Francisco, led by Jimmy Garoppolo and a suffocating defense, controlled the game. Dallas had chances, but in the final seconds, with the Cowboys driving for a potential game-winning score, Dak Prescott scrambled, then tried to spike the ball to stop the clock. Chaos ensued. The officials couldn't set the ball in time. The clock expired. San Francisco won 23-17. Cowboys fans stood in stunned silence. The 49ers had stolen another playoff game in Texas. 1 year later, January 22, 2023, Levi's Stadium, Santa Clara, divisional round. The teams met again, this time in San Francisco. Prescott threw 2 interceptions. Dallas's offense sputtered to just 282 total yards. San Francisco won 19-12, advancing to the NFC Championship game. The 49ers had now beaten Dallas in back-to-back playoff meetings. And yet, the rivalry endures. When Dallas and San Francisco meet now, the echoes of the catch and those 3 consecutive NFC Championship games reverberate through stadiums. Fans remember when these teams were kings, when their collisions decided championships, when the NFL's best met on the biggest stages. The modern playoff meetings proved the hatred never died. It just waited for the next generation to carry it forward. Troy Aikman became a Hall of Fame quarterback and broadcasting legend. Emmitt Smith retired as the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Michael Irvin entered the Hall of Fame, his fiery personality still captivating audiences. Joe Montana is widely considered one of the greatest quarterbacks in history. Steve Young joined him in Canton. Jerry Rice is the greatest wide receiver ever. The dynasties crumbled, but the memories didn't. The rivalry that defined the 1990s, that gave us the catch and 3 straight championship game battles, that returned in the 2020s with the same heartbreak for Dallas, remains embedded in NFL lore. The 49ers have now won 5 straight playoff meetings. The Cowboys are still searching for answers. But the hatred, the respect, the unshakable desire to prove superiority, it's still there, simmering beneath the surface, waiting for another chapter. They were America's team. They were dynasty builders. Together, they delivered football's greatest playoff battles and most unforgettable moments. And yet, the rivalry remains unfinished, because some hatreds don't end. They just wait. And when Dallas and San Francisco finally collide again on the biggest stage, the entire football world will remember why these 2 franchises created the most compelling rivalry the NFL has ever seen. If you enjoyed this video, we think you will love one of the videos on your screen. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.